Hey you guys, welcome back to Tea Time Tuesday. I am still drinking Your Tea's Tiny Tea Detox. I don't really think it's actually detoxing anything, but it's making me feel better about myself. So that is a plus. I feel like I can give them credit for that. It tastes a little bit like dirt, but I still am in love with the branding. And honestly, I do feel a little leaner, even if it's only in my mind. So I couldn't tell you whether it's psychosomatic or real. But stay tuned. I might be able to report more on that in the near future. Today, I want to talk about a subject that makes me feel a little bit vulnerable because I am an expert in the field of branding. I consider myself an expert. I've worked with dozens of yogi-hearted business owners, entrepreneurs, to uncover what their brand is about and to create beautiful designs that are representative of that. And I feel really confident about my ability to do that. I feel like She Ohms is on the right path when it comes to our brand. But brands evolve, and my personal brand, so the Laura dos Santos brand, has been in this constant state of flux, even before I was Laura dos Santos, back when I was Laura Diaz. I have been in this constant state of flux because I'm a serial blogger, so let me back up a little bit and say that I'm a serial blogger. I've had probably 10 blogs in the last 10 years. But what I've done is, rather than put my name on something, I had this philosophy that no one really cared who I was, and that I needed to draw them in with a really interesting name or subheader. And what ended up happening is that those names that I was choosing were really specific to a certain topic or very specific to what it was that I loved in that era of my life. And when I didn't love it anymore, or when it wasn't the biggest highlight of what I wanted to write about, the blog would drop off because, due to the name, I felt really confined, only able to write about one topic. And I let go of I let go of all other blogs when I started She Ohms. And after a few months, I thought that I wanted to have a personal blog. But I cornered myself again. At that time in my life, I was super pumped about my yoga therapy training. I'm still super pumped about my yoga therapy training. But that really influenced my decision, and I named my new blog something very yoga inspired, and I just was naturally drawn to writing only about yoga inspired things, which is fabulous, and I still want to write about those things. However, I felt that I didn't have the freedom to write about what was going on in my life. If I have this yoga inspired blog intended to create community around ideas like self-care and yoga for entrepreneurs and essential oils, it would just be super random if I decided I was going to blog about my best friend's 30th birthday party. It just didn't fit. And I felt confined to the space of what was, well, technically still is, foryourbody.com. For the last few months, I've been thinking about how I can really create a brand that is reflective, all-encompassing of me. So it's not necessarily a brand that caters to an ideal client, because I'm not really looking to use this brand to create or generate revenue. It's just a reflection of me. It's my creative outlet, which is a little different than what I do. Actually, it's a lot different than what I do for my clients and what I've done with the She Ohms brand. When you're building a brand that is revenue generating, or where you have the intention of generating revenue right away, you have to have this understanding of who you are catering to. And while your brand is ultimately who you are and what you stand for, when you are catering to a certain population, a certain audience, you have to craft your brand's message, your brand's mission through the lens of what your ideal client wants and needs. On the other end of this personal branding spectrum are brands where you aren't necessarily generating revenue, whether it's a creative outlet for you or whether you are just building a platform for something that you want to do someday. And I know that sounds a little crazy, but we all need, if you are an entrepreneurial soul, I mean, even if you're not, actually, because creating a personal brand, creating a space for yourself to share, if you are so inclined, even if you are a diehard lover of the corporate world, it still improves your chances of being hired if you can send someone to this beautifully branded website that really says a lot about who you are professionally and personally. Like, that can help you in many cases. So it's not limited to people who are entrepreneurial or who aspire to be entrepreneurial. But what I'm saying with all of this is that you can start building a brand even if you don't necessarily have an objective yet. I feel like all of the blogs that I've had have led me to this point where I now understand the evolution of a personal brand and how important it is to allow ourselves the space to be whoever we are in that moment. It's an exercise in self-study to have a personal brand that revolves just around who you are and what you're doing, not necessarily for anyone, just what you're doing in life. So I founded recently, this is the problem with having all of these resources at my disposal, is as soon as I have an idea, I make it happen, which is both a blessing and a curse. But this week, I founded the Laura Dos Santos Show. I finally created a space where I can just talk about whatever it is that's going on in my life, whatever it is that's on my heart and on my mind this week or this moment. And I decided not to create such rigid guidelines around what I'm writing about. And I'm not even creating rigid guidelines about when I'm writing. This is really an exercise in the evolution of my own personal brand. She Ohms is a huge reflection of who I am and the work that I want to do in the world. So I'm in no way getting away from that. But She Ohms, that brand is not just reflective of me, it's reflective of my incredible team that makes all of this happen. It's reflective of, or it's presented through the lens of what my ideal clients, what you need to learn in business and in brand. It is a brand intended to serve the people who I consider my tribe, whereas the Laura Dos Santos Show is my creative outlet so that I can continue to evolve and continue to sort things out and then decide what I want to bring into other aspects of my business. Anyway, that's kind of a rambling, and there's no takeaway necessarily from this other than you don't have to have it all figured out to start putting yourself out into the world. Exercising your creativity and exercising your ability to be vulnerable is invaluable, because one day, even if you don't necessarily have something that you're putting out into the world right now that you want to sell, someday you might. And if you start now, you've already navigated that world of the tech tools that you need and the emotional process of allowing yourself to be vulnerable and get in front of people and share what you did this weekend or share what you really think about controversial topics. If you've already worked through all that, by the time you are narrowed down, by the time you've niched yourself to create a business or a stream of revenue, you are ahead of the game. That's my little Tea Time Tuesday spiel. I hope you enjoyed it. and I look forward to hearing all about the evolution of your personal brand. Namaste.